podcast. This is our first podcast. We are here in our studio in Watford, One Vision in Penfold Park. This broadcast is live on YouTube and also it will be uploaded on and teamed up with many community leaders, opinion leaders, normal people who lives in our community, who makes decisions, politicians. Please join us. If you would like to join us, go to One Vision YouTube page and subscribe the button and you will be joined, and welcome to our podcast. Today, we are joining with our special guest. She left Watford Grammar School as a head teacher after 29 years. She was recognized as a leader and mentoring many head teachers and school leadership team. She's also given Dame Commander of the British Empire for her services to national state education and received honorary doctorate from the University of Hertfordshire. We got our guest, none other than Dame Helen Hyde. Dame Helen, how are you?
I'm well, Enoch, and it's lovely to be here. It's lovely to be a patron and a trustee of One Vision.
Brilliant. Dame, when I started thinking about doing this podcast this morning, I always remember every time you see people, you tell them to take care of themselves, and especially with their health, to look after themselves. And I've been following you for the last 15 years. You haven't changed. You look the same. So what is the secret behind?
Firstly, that's real flattery, Enoch, so thank you very much. Just wrinkles are age wisdom lines. But on a serious note, it's taking care of other people. And that's what I like to do. In my professional life and in my charity life, I like to look after people.
Perfect. Dame Helen, I know you're originated from South Africa. Could you give a little bit about your origin?
Well, I was born in South Africa. My father had to leave Germany because he was Jewish. Most of his family were wiped out because they were Jewish. But I had a lovely life in South Africa in spite of the awful apartheid. I never wanted to bring up my children in that environment. And so I'm in wonderful Britain.
Brilliant. So what brought you to Britain?
It wasn't actually so much Britain as leaving South Africa. We first went to France so I could improve. I'm a French teacher as well. And then we came to Britain because, to be honest, I had to earn some money. And then I took over various teaching roles, taught, became a head, and then trained as a Holocaust educator. And I'm now a trustee of the National Holocaust Centre and Museum, Holocaust Education Trust, and various other charities that deal with genocide victims.
Brilliant, perfect. Dame Helen, what makes you to teach? Why do you love teaching?
Love teaching is an understatement. I really love teaching. I love being with young people to help them think, to think for themselves, to have independent thought, and to actually look at society, their societies and their nations, to see whether we can make a better world.
Brilliant. Dame Helen, we know that we are here to talk about hate and discrimination. And before we go into that topic, I just want to find out from you, what is going on in the world?
Well, I'm not a historian, I'm not a politician, but if you look at what's happening, nations are becoming more and more nationalistic. With COVID and even pre-COVID, economies have crashed. And when you've got a world like that, then people like to scapegoat and they like to pick on minorities, whether it's Jewish minorities, Muslim minorities, black minorities, but that's where we are at the moment. And my hope is that if we educate, we can put a stop to this, that the growth of nationalism is dangerous. So I think we should get into hatred and discrimination, because if you look back in the 1940s, 6 million people were killed and 1.5 million children, innocent children, murdered just because they were Jewish. My family were part of that. That was 1940. And you ask about the world. In Rwanda, in 1994, they murdered 1 million Tutsis just because of who they were. In Bosnia, 1995, they murdered over 800,000 Muslim boys and men just because they were Muslim. I think when things aren't good for one area of the population, they victimize, they stereotype. We've got the Rohingya, we've got the Afghans, we've got the Syrians. That's now in 2021.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Education is the way out.
Brilliant. You may know in Britain and other parts of the West, especially coming to UK, the immigration is going high. Recently is going high. So you can see that different nationality coming into UK for various reasons. But what does a refugee mean to you?
Firstly, it means a new wealth for the country they're coming to. These refugees didn't choose to be refugees. They come from all levels of their society. Some are doctors, some are nurses, some are farmers. But when they come to a new country, they offer something wonderful. And I can only think of when, at the start of the Second World War, all these children came on the Kindertransport. Some of them are like Lord Dubs. He's a member of Parliament now. Some were gold medalists at the Olympic Games, like Ben Helfgott. Refugees coming into a country need to be treasured. Yeah. They bring their culture, and we can learn from their culture. We shouldn't be frightened of them, but we should welcome them.
Am I rightly saying the refugees need more time to integrate with UK society?
They need time to integrate, of course, definitely, and they need help to integrate. But we also need to show respect for their culture.
Exactly.
They come from a very developed culture. Take Syria, for example. I was working with a family from Aleppo, educated people, wonderful. They took time to integrate, and now they are contributing to our society. If you think of all these Afghan people who fled a beautiful country, although a very poor country, let's help them integrate, not expect them to eat our food, help them with their food, gradually integrate, and then they'll help our society to improve.
Brilliant. So it makes you to think there is a hope.
I've always got hope.
Brilliant. Okay. So coming back, you talked about Holocaust, and you've done some brilliant work with Holocaust Education. Tell me, why is Holocaust important today?
It's a very important question. It shows us, if we look at Germany in the 1930s, this was one of the most educated, civilized countries in the world. And yet, their democracy, which was an established democracy, turned on its axis. And it created a society where the society were complicit in the murder. So you had doctors, teachers, engineers, nurses, religious people, all helping to make sure that this murder factory worked. So, and there were those who benefited from all the looting. So learning about the Holocaust can show us the steps that can lead to a massive genocide, a catastrophe that's not only a catastrophe for Jewish people, it's a world catastrophe. We're all human beings, one human race. So I think let's walk holding each other's hands, learn from each other, respect each other, and love each other as human beings. That's what was missing in the Holocaust, victimizing a minority just because they were Jewish. Or Roma and Sinti, also murdered just because they were what we call Roma and Sinti now, but they were called gypsies then.
Yeah. There's a lot of things happening. One thing is, to me, hate and discrimination keep popping up. With all your experience, you have taught a number of young children for last 30 years. They might be grown up now,
They
many
are.
of them, okay? Um, they need to understand what can be done to battle racism and discrimination.
Firstly, we need to develop Holocaust education. We've always got to teach the facts, but we must use the evidence so that we can refute Holocaust denial. And then we need to use things that are for visual learners, photographs and films, and make sure the students understand who took them, why, and whether the victims wanted to be photographed. And then we need to show them how the steps leading to a minority being picked on, being made to feel outside, other, just because their beliefs or their skin color were different. Children at school generally are loving towards each other. It's their parents that we need to get to. And so I take many adults to the Netherlands, to Germany, to Poland to study the Holocaust. And then we look at our current minorities and see who, for example, in the UK, are being discriminated against. Anti-Semitism is rising again. Hatred of Muslim groups is rising again. We've got to stop it now, all of us.
So education is more important.
Education in schools, there must be special curriculum time. At the moment, school teachers are working all the hours they can. The curriculum is too full, and there isn't enough time given to the study of the Holocaust and the lessons from the Holocaust. If you learn the lessons, you may not do it again. Have you ever heard of Pastor Niemoller?
No.
He wrote a poem, and I'm going to read it to you.
Brilliant. Go ahead.
Okay, listen. He said, first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. And I think that just shows if we don't speak out and defend minorities, they will be victimized, they will be stereotyped, and there will be violence.
Brilliant. So there's lots of work to be done.
Lots.
So what about our community leaders and politicians and corporate CEOs or faith leaders, when it comes to hate and discrimination? What can be done?
Number one, I think the churches must stand up and be counted. During the Second World War, they played a very invidious role. But I'll come back to one vision and what we're doing in our little town of Watford. We've got our faith leaders all working together to make a better society in Watford. And in Watford, we've got people of all religions, all colours. It's wonderful. So if we could use Watford as an example where we bring faith leaders together, we teach about anti-Semitism, we teach what happened to the 6 million and then what's happening now at all the other genocides, and we work together to make the people in our society feel comfortable, feel welcome, and feel that they can contribute. But you have to start small. You start in a home, in school, then a small society, small town, and then you move to the nation. But we must get politicians listening and saying now is the time to put a stop to nationalism and hatred.
Brilliant. Yes. I'm sure that everyone will be listening to you today. This is, a most needed topic. We need to start thinking that we are one human being, and we got a world of generation to come. They need to feel the same thing. So we need to be setting an example.
We do.
Brilliant. Okay. So you talked about Holocaust many times. I've followed you, the time and energy invested on Holocaust education in UK. Do we need a Holocaust education reboot or kind of a new approach?
I think we do, and there are new approaches. Last week I visited the Imperial War Museum. They've got new Holocaust galleries, very detailed. If you come up to a fantastic museum near Nottingham called the National Holocaust Centre and Museum, they've developed a number of new programs. One is called the Forever Program, where they've filmed 360-degree survivors. So you can sit in front of a survivor and ask that survivor anything, and that survivor may not be alive anymore, but will answer any question. They've asked the survivor thousands of questions. And the students I've seen absolutely love it and learn a lot. The second program, which I think is amazing, they put on virtual reality glasses and they look at a photo and they go into the photo. And they can look right round to see why that photographer was shooting shooting with a film, the victims on the pavement. What was going on? So we need to take, learning has to change. And I think we've got technology that's marvelous. And so we can take young children with us, and I think from the age of 11, to see what filming, photographs, what they can learn from that, but also new ways of presenting it, new textbooks, new experiences, new trips to Holocaust, to authentic sites. That's what they need. But Holocaust education must change and is changing.
Tell me something. After 29 years of head teacher, one day you stopped and decided that I don't want to be a bystander. I want to help others. What made you to drop that fantastic career and you come out to help others?
The absolute truth is, I don't know if you know, there is a psalm in the Old Testament that says the still small voice that speaks. Well, I had the still small voice speaking in my head, driving me crazy. And it kept on saying, get your hands dirty. And while I've got enormous respect for head teachers, we're good talkers, and we encourage others to take social action. But I then thought I have to act. So I resigned in the November, and I started working with all my charities, and now I actually get my hands dirty. I work with very deprived people. I take students and adults to Holocaust touch countries. And I'm actually heavily involved. And I also go into schools. I'll always be teaching.
Brilliant. One last thing. I know you're a trustee and you work in very close with many charities. Why One Vision?
One Vision really caught my eye because the first few meetings I had, and when I came to help with the food hub, I met you from India, a Christian. I met people from South America. I met people from all over the world, all colours, all religions, and we were all loving towards each other, and we still are. So for me, One Vision just opened my eyes to something that I've dreamt of. Community leaders, people who've got no title, politicians or not, all working to make our town of Watford a better place. So thank you, Enoch. One Vision is very special for me.
Thank you, Dame Helen, and thank you for watching our podcast. There's something we need to take here from Dame Helen Hyde with hate and discrimination. The one thing she said, we need to stop it here. The reason why it is, we need to be an example for our younger generation. And I'm sure that we all can work together on this topic. Hate and discrimination, where will it lead? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our One Vision podcast. Our next speaker is going to be Helen Gray from Hertfordshire Community Foundation. So she's going to come and talk about how to help those small charities and small groups by applying for fundings or grants and what kind of help they put together. So please join us on November the 11th at 9:30 a.m.